Hi guys, in this video I'm going to show you how you can make some pretty decent thumbnails like these just using Keynote and Preview. Okay, so just before we get started, I am aware that you can use services such as Canva or Snapper, and of course this video only applies to people who have got Macs, but you could probably also use PowerPoint as an alternative. It's a pretty decent all-round app. So without further ado, let's get into the tutorial. Okay, so first of all, it's a pretty good idea to get some images of yourself to put into the thumbnail. And one way of doing that is obviously just taking photos, or if you're filming, then you can just do a little bit of posing either at the beginning of the film or the end of the film, and then you can just take snapshots and you upload them, and we can do some editing to make those images suitable for our thumbnails. Okay, so I've got a video here of me doing some poses at the end of the video that I filmed earlier, and I'm going to just use VLC Player to get a snapshot of this. Promise this is the only other piece of software to use, but you don't have to use VLC Player. Anything that will do a screen grab is completely fine. You can just use the shortcut on the keyboard, which is Shift Command 3 or Shift Command 4 if you want to take a selection. So here, if we just open this with VLC, and you can see me waffle on for a bit, and here I start doing some posing. So it's a nice smiling one. So what we can do is we can come up to video, go down to snapshot, click that, and you can see that it will take a snapshot. Annoyingly, it's upside down, but we can fix that later on. So let's play the video a little bit further. This was really fun, just posing in front of a camera. Sounds silly. A nice pointing one, and I'm going to use the shortcut, which is Alt Command S. And we'll do one more. Oh, side profile one. Am I looking at the camera? Yeah. Make eye contact, that's always good. Okay, so that's all we needed VLC Player for. It's free to download, so use that because it's easy to take those snapshots. And importantly, it saves them as PNGs. But again, we can do that in Preview. So as you can see, these are all upside down. So this is where we want to open these with Preview. So here we go, our upside down images. If we just select them all by holding Shift and clicking to the end, then we can rotate these, and now we've got a perfectly normal image. Okay, so the next step to this, if you've ever seen thumbnails, then what you often have is the person is sort of masked out and they're popping out of a background that has been edited, maybe with some graphics, some icons. So that's what we're going to do in this particular tutorial. So to edit out this background, first of all, what we need to do is click on the edit button, and what we're going to use is these tools here. So this rectangular selection, you can just select an area, expand this, and then press delete. And this checkerbox area here is where it's basically transparent. So on a PNG, this is the alpha part of it, which is the transparency. So again, get rid of an area. And what we're doing is we're just cutting away the area until we just are left with the image that we want. Okay, so there are some other tools which you can use, and you might, if you know Preview, you might be wondering why I'm not using this, which is the Auto Alpha. So this tool up here, if we click it and then we scroll with the mouse, you can see that it's highlighting an area in red in which the colors are similar to the pointer area that I've selected. And the more I scroll, the more it will delete. So this is pretty good. Selects an area. And that's pretty good to do in most cases, apart from the background in my image is very similar to skin tone, and that means that quite often when I'm doing this, it will cut out bits of my arm or hand. But it's a useful tool for doing areas where there's good contrast. But here, if I were to do that, it's just going to take out my face. This might be a nice effect if you want a transparent face. If we zoom into this image now, sorry, I have to get a close-up of me. We can see it working, and the less I scroll, the softer I scroll, the less it will actually take out. So again, you can see it's kind of cut away in my ear here. Hang on a minute. It's left a bit, but we can edit this, as I'll show you in a minute, in Keynote as well. So as you see, it's going to take out my hair on my arm here. So we don't want to do that. And the other problem with this is if it doesn't pick bits up, you might be able to see them here, you can be left with this sort of speckling, and that will really show up on a plain background in Keynote. So this is where I like to use the lasso selection, and you can sort of fine tune it by drawing it in yourself and deleting it. So a top tip here is to do a load of these poses, do a load of these images and save them in a library, and then they're just ready to go when you next need to do a thumbnail. So that's looking pretty good right now. And we can fine tune that, like I said, in Keynote. So you do the other ones and then save them, but I'm not going to do that now. So what we just do is copy that image, and we want to open Keynote, and we want to open a new document, and this is just a blank Keynote. Get rid of these, don't need them. And the thing I like about Keynote compared to something like Canva or Snapper is, one, it's local on your computer, so you don't need an internet connection, or you're not reliant on storing things elsewhere. You're storing it on your own hard drive. But also what I can do is I can use this as a kind of workbench where I can keep objects, keep multiple different versions of a thumbnail, and then I can compare them at the end. So if we paste in our outfit image, that's a lot better. As you see, I've missed out this bit here. So this is where we can use the Instant Alpha tool. And it works. I feel like it works better in Keynote. I'm not quite sure why, but sorry about the sound of the fan on my Mac there. It's working hard trying to do a screen recording and all this editing. Anyway, I'm not too fussed about that. Maybe that bit there I am. Okay. Edited those bits out, and now we've got a nice image that stands out. So let's just position that over to one side. What's really nice about this is if you didn't take your photo or your shot with enough space, if you didn't frame it correctly so that you could perhaps have images here, you can move it over to one side and you can put all the text and images you like on this side here. So some very, very simple, we can just do a background color fill. I like to do a gradient one. This blue's kind of nice. And that's already looking quite good. And then we can add in some text. So let's whack that up to about 200. And then I like to use either Avenir Next Condensed or DLN, is it? What is it? DIN. We want to write down thumbnail. And let's copy and paste this. So we have the same style. Tutorial. Okay, that looks pretty bland and rubbish, so we need to just sort of make this text pop a little bit. One thing I like to do is to make the text all caps. I could have just done that to start with, but if you didn't, you can click on this little settings icon here, capitalization, all caps. Do the same for this one. There you go, capitalization, all caps. So we want to make this stand out. Perhaps we want to make the text white, so it pops a bit more. And then perhaps we want the background color to be something to make it stand out even more. So we can do a color fill on that, and maybe we'll make it grey. Maybe the dark grey would be better. But I'm not really a fan of this, and for some reason the text is positioned weirdly. I think it's because I messed with some of the advanced text options. But something I do like to do is add an outline and a shadow just to make it pop a bit more. Like I said, a better way of doing this box around it is to draw a box. So come up to the top, grab shape, and then get that nice and tight to the text. And then all we need to do is go on arrange and then go backwards. And there you go. That looks pretty good. If we want to change the color to that grey, doesn't look too bad. And if we wanted to copy and paste this, use that for the tutorial one. And this is nice perhaps to have a different color. So I'm going to use this red here that I like to use for stuff. And again, if we arrange that backward, so we're already getting a nice sort of thumbnail image here. You can even make this a little bit bigger. And some cool things you can do is, for example, just kind of, so we're going to arrange, and we want to highlight the text, and we can just change the angle ever so slightly, maybe by 2 degrees, and it just kind of makes it look a bit more funky. The other thing we might want to do is add graphics to this. So for example, this tutorial is using Preview and Keynote, so it'd be nice to have the icons of those things in this thumbnail. So I'm just going to go on Google and search Preview Mac app PNG, and there's one here, and this is nice because this one's already got it's a PNG and it's got this transparency, so we can copy the image and then a nice bold image, and this transparency means it kind of again pops out of the screen. We can add a shadow to that as well, increase that a little bit more, and it'd be nice to also have the Keynote one. Where's the, so already searched Keynote app PNG, but I'm going to grab this one here and show you what to do if you don't have a PNG. So let's copy this image, paste it in. Now we could just crop this by edit mask. That was a bit quick, I'll do that again. So right click, edit mask, and we could just crop this image and make it a square box around. So there's a much better way of doing this. And if we go to our old friend up here, Instant Alpha, we can get rid of all of this just by selecting that color and making it transparent. Now we've got a completely transparent background, but we still want this to stand out, so we need to now put a border around it, a bit like this one, in order to make it stand out. So the way we do that is go to Style, put a border here, put a line border in. The minute it's black, obviously we want it white, and whack this up to about 25. See what that looks like. That looks pretty good actually. Maybe just a little bit bigger, and then, well, look at that, it's pretty much even with that, which is nice. Actually, if you look, this is not quite white, it's like an off-white grey colour. So again, what we can do is, instead of making it white, we can get this, the selector tool, take that colour, and that's going to make that very similar to that now. And it's just those little touches which I think makes it look a little bit more professional. I think they're really worth doing. So we've got a nice thumbnail sort of developing here. Okay, so another graphic that we might like, this is to do with YouTube and YouTube thumbnails, so we'll get the YouTube icon. Okay, so this is kind of come together quite nice now. Now I think that the background's a little bit plain. I might want to make that a bit more interesting. So there's a couple of ways we can do that. First of all, we can add in like a shape which will create like a slash and a divider across the screen. So if we pull this right out like that. And we can now send that to the back. And you've got this nice divide, and that really makes those icons pop. And this is what I really like about Keynote. So I quite like that. It's not too bad. I think there's something better we can do with it, but I can keep it, almost save it for later. We just duplicate it, and then I can start working on this one. So we go back to our shape, and we go on style. We can reduce the opacity down. And as you can see, it now becomes like a darker blue across our image, which I think looks good, cool. So again, that looks so much better, and I would be happy with that. Okay, so what we can do now is add a little bit more depth to the background by adding an image to it and giving it a bit of texture. So one way we can do that is, I've got an image of my desk. I just took this on my phone quickly early on today. There's me practicing some thumbnail tutorials and images, and it just looks like a pretty boring, not very good image, but it's useful for the texture because it gives some sort of context for our thumbnail. So what we can do is copy and paste that into Keynote, and then a nice little trick we can do is reduce the opacity right down. And then we can expand this image to fill the screen. It's nice to give it a little, where is it, arrange. It's nice to give it a bit of a tilt. That's probably a bit too much. Here we go. Okay, that's looking good. And then if we copy that, overlay it over the top of our thumbnail here. Now that's obviously on the front, so we want to arrange this again, send it to the back, and now again we've got a little bit more of a texture going on. We can also alter it a little bit, so some of that is, I think that would be better. And we've got a pretty decent image now. I'm pretty happy with this, just using Keynote. And got the icons in there, you've got a nice textured background, you've got a bit of depth. And the cool thing about Keynote is that if I now just duplicate this slide, I can start messing around with it whilst keeping the original. So perhaps if I look at the background, blue's kind of nice, but maybe I would prefer a different colour, maybe green. And again, I can then duplicate it again, and I can say, oh, maybe I would prefer this kind of teal colour. Actually, I quite like that one. So again, you've got 3 different images here that you can mess around with and alter, and you've kind of got lots of versions to go by. The final thing we need to do now is kind of export this, and I found that the best way to get the best resolution is to play this slide in full screen. And again, you can use this to sort of go through and check your images. So I actually really like this one. Now I'm going to go with the blue because the blue goes with the Keynote icon. And then hold Shift Command 3 and it will take a screenshot. And if we just come out of here, this is what the final image looks like. And yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. Thank you for watching this tutorial. If you like this sort of stuff, then let me know and I can try and make some more. I'm going to be uploading a video every single day this week as part of this 5-day challenge where I'm trying to make more videos. And this is the sort of stuff that you can look forward to. Cheers.